Snap out of it. Thought-provoking, challenging the popular perspectives, critical of today's opinions. We go all the way in deep. What's a thought's worth if thoughts must conform to ill-conceived theories and so-called orthodox beliefs, twisted opinions of hypocrisy? How do we reach new heights? Ascend to higher realizations, activate the powers of abstract reasoning? We must break the chains that hold us down from celestial flights. Face what you think you know with what you have yet to know. For the moment, never mind how you believe things ought to be. We must revolutionize our minds for there to be a clear way to unify. For that to happen, we must have a seat at the table all over again. Just making sure the light works. Unlock the keys of scrutiny. Revive what it means to pursue knowledge. Manifest the God in we, you and me. Welcome to your wake-up call. Soul Journey of Life. Conscious Black Social Media. The LightDome. There we are. Yes, indeed, family. We are back again. This is your brother, Abdul Wadud, aka Questman, coming at you live. Soul Journey of Life, Conscious Black Social Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Shalom, peace, and blessings. Hotep be with the viewers right now. Hope that you are watching this in a good state of mind, body, and soul, health-wise, and that your journey is one, if it's, in the path and in the way of righteousness, that it's one that, is reaping the rewards of your efforts, of what you put forth. If you would, also, I beg your pardon. I have my boys it's bedtime. It's supposed to be bedtime, but they are not too tired just yet. So hopefully they will run themselves tired right about now. But you can probably hear them in the background stomping around in their bedroom. Let's see here. This would be peace and blessings. So I've had to take quite a bit of time off because I've had some things that needed to be done, some elements within the family. My oldest child here is now beginning her education, and that's a matter that is a handle of care type of matter. It's not something that you can just do willy-nilly. This is your own legacy, your own seed, and so it's a handle of care situation. So quite a bit that had to be done. But while that was happening, there's been quite a bit that has been observed. By the way, I do also beg your pardon again. We had a letter that needed to go out to our brother by the name of John Fitzgerald Johnson, aka Grandmaster Jay. That letter is still not out, and the reason why that is because it's locked into the server of Soul Journey of Life. You might not notice, but if you go to souljourneyoflife.org right now, that it is offline, and that's because the bill for the hosting hasn't been paid. Um, that was something that was hoping to be a collective effort with the community to keep the website alive, because it's a social media platform, and it was designed for the social community. But without the social community support, it can't not exist. So the the contents of the letter remain trapped in the data form of the website, and without it actually being a website in the website status live, I should say, I cannot access the contents of the letter in order to print and mail. So that's unfortunate. Um, it it is what it is. But I do intend to you know compose a letter of sorts anyway, to show support. And give me a moment here. And speaking of which, there has been communications that I've observed coming my way. And in those communications, where are we? Of the communications has been one that has inspired um, what we're doing, or what we intend to do today, tonight, I should say. And that is reading a rendering, or a publishing, I should say, of another scholarly work. Give me a second here, because I'm setting something up that I want to show you as I'm looking at it. Um, and that's another thing. I also had some internet issues. The internet was down and wasn't treating me too favorable as of late. So I actually had to get a whole another what do you call it? Service provider, internet service provider. You know, stay alive. All right. Let me see if I can show you this. And this is what we're going to be dealing with this evening. Um, let's do this. There we go. Yeah. If you can look on your screen, and by the way, I do want to just throw this little disclaimer in here, because the material that we're going to be dealing with is not of my own, it's not of Soul Journey of Life, and the contents are of the rights of its proper ownership. And of course, we're using it here for the purposes of education, commentary, and such as you see in the proper Copyright Act. Okay, so this is a book titled Blueprint for Black Power, a moral, political, and economic imperative for the 21st century. Um, Author, as you see there, a black on black, the author of the Black on Black Violence book, Amos N. Wilson. Okay, and as you can see, and by the way, peace and blessings to those in the commentary. I do see a few familiar names. Spiritual Rising, Salam Alaikum, peace and blessings, Brother Gary. Um, so this book came my way through the community, but more specifically, this book was recommended by a brother who is currently behind bars, a victim of political imprisonment, a victim of systemic racism. And just to say a few, brother by the name of John Fitzgerald Johnson, also known as Grandmaster Jay. So this book was pointed out as
a recommended reading. So I figured, as we had been doing, at some earlier time, with a book called The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, we read that, which was also a recommendation by the same individual. So here we are. We're going to go into this book this evening. I do have, let's see here. See, I wanted to have had this as a PDF where you could go to the website and you could download it there without too much of a hassle. But since the website is down until I can get the proper support from the community, um, while I do have the PDF, if you want to follow along, I'd have to email it to you. And I do believe that in the description of this live, in its description, let me see here. Yeah, I believe in the description of the live is yeah, the contact email for comments and questions. So if you look in the description of the live, email me. I'll make an effort to send you a copy of the PDF version of this so you can read along if you don't have the a digital copy of yourself, or if you don't have the physical book. So just email me. You see the email sojourningoflife.social@gmail.com. That's the email, and we can read along together, or as I did with the Destruction of Black Civilization reading, you can simply participate by plugging in your earphones and sit back, relax on your couch with your nicely brewed chai or coffee. It's Sadi, shalom, peace and blessings, welcome. So, there's something missing right now, and I'm waiting for that patiently by my dear love. And so, just give me a moment, because I don't want to be interrupted, and I want to have that right here. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's not in my hand yet, so I'm just kind of exercising a degree of patience. So, but take a look at this. What you see here, what you see in addition to the book cover, you see a message, and I intend to read that message here shortly. But you could read it right there. You could read it right there. Because one of the things I like to do, as I think many of us are encouraging, is to be on one accord. You see, because when we're delving into a common cause, when we're in sync as a family, digging into common resources, it kind of gets everybody on the same page. You understand? It puts us on the same page. So bear with me here. And while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and rock your mind just a little bit. Let's see here. Let us see here. Can I do this? Maybe not. Here we go. Check this out while we wait, right? My bad. I thought the shop was closed. I was just like, this is my work. What's this right here? Hold on. Hey, got an idea. Check this out. What are you waiting for? The fees and flows for them with their heads still attached to their shoulders. I make amends for what I failed to see until I got a little older. Versatility is a necessity in today's business. Take that as a proverb. You may think it's awkward, but it's really just what I observe. Never mind whatever you heard. I'm Questman, so much flow in sync with the flight of a carnivorous bird. I get high off the knowledge of how to spin around my myrrh. Kaaba, Allahu Akbar, blessed when I honor my mama and Baba. Disrespect them and it's you I clobber. Aha! Just when you thought all those rainy days is what keep me weighted. I rise up off the ground like one snapped out of being medically sedated. I salute the melanated, the froze, the locks, and the braided. Naturally, I make it a habit of keep on loving me, so I'm never bothered by the hatred. You see the frames, but I'm that nerd that's naughty by nature. Ice water vapor, flight of the navigator. Put that on paper, sign right there. I tickle the feminine in the wind, tasting candy coated raindrops enough to make your head spin. Brother, this is not a ring you really want to get in. I'm a wordsmith, make the nerves twitch. After you heard this, you might just want to roll another. Hold up, as I spit for the righteous, yeah, you might need to pass that as we battle the current crisis. I see red and blue lights in the streets. I bow my head because the fallen carry the same blood my heart beats. Hold it down, UNIFY. Hold it down. Hold it down, UNIFY. Hold it down.
Spin that pluralistic, high quality gold subtone submission. My flow is sadistic. Call me the wordsmith. Keys to the untold stories that bring your passion to glories. Educating the sun, moon, and youth. The universal which introduces logic and nice ideologies. Flying on philosophies, carrying the baby of a dying breed. Correlating ancestors to restore the community. Praying on the cloud, listen on my knees, soaring on cosmic energies. To reverse the mindset of the ignorant, building abundance and breaking down generational curses. As I smirk, giving you positive hurt. Rebuking the vapor that we breathe in and calibrates our mental to damage, disfigure, disturb that thought process, sorting out the weak. Seeking to kill, still in the joy. The blessings made on a stone of exhilarating cake that celebrates the victory set out for the world. Exhilarate prosperity.
Hold it down, UNIFY. Hold it down. Hold it down, UNIFY.
Gathering my collectiveness.
Yes, indeed, family. UNIFY. That's definitely an essential ingredient in our time right about now. Something that, is of great, advice from your brother. And shout out to the support of Niqua B on that particular joint that you just heard. Hold it down. Questman. Of course, you can get that at your iTunes or Spotify or Amazon store, what have you. So right here, what we can read on this a message of love and gratitude from our beloved Grandmaster Jay. Says, tell the people how great I am for all of their continued love and support. Tell them to look forward to beginning our studies together by purchasing the ancestor Amos Wilson's powerful book entitled Blueprint for Black Power, a moral, political, and economic imperative for the 21st century. Let them know that my last thoughts of this adventurous year will be spent praying for them. Tell them to write and send appropriate pictures. Tell them thank you and I love you. I love them all. I bid them peace. I bid them Shabbat Shalom. I love you all, Grandmaster Jay. And that was 12/31/22. That was the last day of the concluding the previous year. So stay tuned and stay tuned and calls. It ain't over. Very, very, very true. So salute. I also want to give a shout out to a brother by the name of Coat Figure, who's been doing a pretty strong job at digging into a lot of details on certain things when it comes to like the just some of the political matters going on in the world, some of the matters going on in the different levels of deception that are going on through some of the elites and people who don't entirely mean us well. You understand? Shout out to that brother. And I was thinking of course, we want to shout out to our dear sister, K Money, who's still remaining strong on the job, as well as Sister Eleanor, which is, another sister, very strong sister, definitely on the job. So shout out to those as the sisters and brothers of the community who are out there putting in the work. and so we're going to do our share, right? So let's go ahead and close that for a moment. I would encourage you that if you've been showing support for the brother during his time of incarceration, to continue showing that support. You can, I believe I have the banner showing the link. You can go to this site that you see on the screen here to get more details and more information about what's going on in the matter, and to kind of stay up to date, and also to get you links to show you how you can continue supporting, continue supporting, continue supporting. Yeah, now that right there, that's going to keep me awake a little bit longer. So I'm going to try to utilize that motivation right there for a justified cause. So, um, so there we have it. Again, brothers and sisters, this is Soul Journey of Life, Conscious Black Social Media, that you are viewing right now live with your brother Abdul Wadud, aka Questman. You know how we get down here. We keep it conscious. We keep it on code, and we strive hard to dig deep into the knowledge. We want to keep the light on. Now, I'm preparing to put this PDF up here so we can see this PDF of the book. Oh, well, it would help if I didn't close the PDF, but I did. Instead of maximizing or enlarging it, I closed. So let's just open that back up. All right. Yes, indeed, family. It's real. So we all got to do our part. We all got to get in class. This is the classroom right now. We all got to be, like they say, keep our head on the swivel, and keep our eyes wide open, and keep that light on. Come on. It's taking a little time to load up. Mm-hmm. So how's the people doing? How's the family doing? How's the viewers doing since we last conversated? Let me know in the chat how you're doing, where you at, what you're on, what you're thinking about. Break bread with a brother. Mm-hmm. Is it going to load up or not? Sometimes it just takes its time. Let me see here. Let's do it this way. There we go. All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had some issues to tackle with this with my equipment here as of late, but nothing that I can't deal with. It just takes time, effort, and a little bit of modern day currency. So let me see if I could get this up here on the screen for you so we can watch and view this together. We're going to check out the cover of the book. I've been kind of reading through this, at least a few pages in the opening, but I like to read this with you, you know, and even as the first time is what I'm saying. So that way we can kind of experience what we're reading together, kind of fresh. I'm not sure if how many of you've read this book already, or how many of you this is perhaps your first time reading this book. But let's see here. Let's do that. Is this? It looks like it. Okay. All right. But my hope is that we can benefit in a constructive way. So as you can see right here, let me make my screen a little bigger so I can read it, because as you see, I do wear glasses, so it's not always easy to read the small print. Now that I got this binoculars underneath the lens here, bifocals, So as you can see here, blueprint for Black Power, Amos. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Let me see if I can do something here. It's got this flickering going on, and that can be annoying. So what I'm going to do, give me a second here. I'm going to, I'm wondering something here. You know what? I got an idea. Give me a second, because I'm going to see if I can share this a different way. I'm going to share this a different way, family. Bear with me. Because for some reason, when I try to share it the way that you were seeing it, here, let me try it one more time. You saw a flickering going on. See, there it is again. Interesting. So let's try to share this a different way. So bear with me, bear with me. Let's see what we can do. I don't know. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to set this up so that way we can see this. And hopefully, if I do it this way, do it right, we won't get the flickering that you were seeing there. So there we go. And there's the PDF. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. If not, I'm going to be reading it. So I'm going to try to make this as large as I can without it being too much in the way. And maybe what I'll be able to do is show this on the screen in two different sizes, because I'd like to be able to kind of talk about it while at the same time allow you to be able to see it. So with that said, let's do this. All right. Yeah, that ought to work. That ought to work. All right, 1 second here. I'm just rearranging some things so that way everything is not in the way. A little bit of a task, but not too much of a task. All right, you see me messing around here. Mm-hmm. There. I think hmm. All right. So yeah, we'll just use that size right there. I think I was trying to see if you could be able to see it at that size. I think you can. Might have to enlarge your screen a little bit. Um, because I have everything on full screen, so you should be able to see it. Yeah, I know. They we know that what we're up against. We know what we're up against. Okay. So there we go. Let's do it like this. So what you should be seeing on your screen right about now is the showing the front cover and the back cover of the Blueprint for Black Power, a moral, political, and an economic imperative for the 21st century by Amos and Wilson. And if you look on the back cover, it reads as follows. And this is to give you, kind of a thumbnail sketch of what's going on here. African life into the coming millennia is imperiled by white and Asian power. True power must nest in the ownership of the real estate wherever African people dwell. Economic destiny determines biological destiny. Blueprint for Black Power details a master plan for the power evolution necessary for Black survival in the 21st century. White treatment of African Americans, despite a myriad of theories explaining white behavior, ultimately rests on the fact that they possess the power to do so. Such a power differential Such a power differential must be neutralized if blacks are to prosper in the 21st century. African Americans earn a take-home salary of nearly 500 billion yearly, not to mention the trillions they generate. Yet they retain only 5% of this income. Viewed as a nation, their economy would be the eighth or ninth largest in the world. African Americans possess enormous potential to amass effectual social, political, and economic power, and thus control their destiny and secure their liberation. Professor Wilson argues that were the African American community to see itself as indeed a de facto nation, then its scourge of poverty, disemployment, crime, miseducation, wanton consumerism, alienated deficit spending, misleadership, and powerlessness would be drastically reduced, if not eliminated. Let me make this a little larger in this other window so you guys can see it with me. That one there. There we go. There we go. I think that ought to work. All right. So, continuing, Blueprint. Yeah, Blueprint posits the that an African American Caribbean Pan African bloc would be most potent for the generation and delivery of Black power in the United States and in the world to counter white and Asian power networks. Wilson frames this imperative by deconstructing the U.S. elite power structure of government, political parties, think tanks, um, corporations, foundations, media interest groups, banking, and foreign investment particulars, potentially strong Black institutions as the church, media, and think tanks, industry. I'm going to say collectives. It's hard to see that one, such as investment clubs and credit unions, rotating credit associations such as the originated USUSIS. That looks like a Latin formula there. Teen and partner are analyzed. Pan-African Black nationalism, ethnocentrism, and reparation are assessed, often misused and underused. Financial institutions as securities, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, underwritings, and incubators advocated, thus elucidating oft negated opportunities for economic empowerment. Blueprint, the can you speak the word? The legitimates, not in my vocabulary right there. White power. I was thinking it said delegates, but it's delegitimates. My pronunciation's off. White power and roundly critiques the black sycophantic. Wow, I can't see these words because the book is so old. Religious leadership establishment for the historic moralizing of black socio-economic conditions and programmatic ineptitude. Wilson warns the consequences of black obsolete. I can't read those words. You're gonna have to take a look at that book and see if you can read those words. Biological annihilation, aptly titled Blueprint for Black Power, stops not at critique but prescribes radical practical theories, frameworks, and approaches for true power. It gives a biting look into black potentiality. This 90-page treatise is a journey into the protracted. Okay. Yes, indeed. Peace and blessings. Salute to all those coming in. Sit down. Get yourself a nice cup of coffee. You understand? And sit back and just chill out. Let's do that. All right, there we go. So that was the back of the book that you see right there that I was citing to you. We're gonna just go ahead and go in, right? We're gonna go ahead and go in, and we're actually gonna start off on the first chapter. So you can take the time on your own occasion to look at the acknowledgments. There's your table of content there. Your forward. You can take the time to check out the forward. And here we are, chapter 1. And periodically, I'll be looking at the commentary. Don't mind I got this bot that's the Streamlab bot. So it has certain parameters that if somebody types something there, it's meant to try to block like spammers and stuff like that. So sometimes you get these spammers that come and they'll just repeatedly post madness, and then we got to sit there and do all that. So it's meant to try to deal with that. It's not really meant to be like against your standard sharing and commentary and whatnot, but sometimes it does get in the way. So bear with us here. I'm looking at the content here. Yes, indeed. Salute, brother Balance. So, and I was looking at this earlier. It really gets in. If you really want a real scholastic view at Black empowerment, this is probably the book that you're going to want to take an in-depth look at. You understand? It goes into it in a lane that many of us everyday folks may not give a lot of thought about. You understand? I mean, even just, being able to recognize terms and understanding of those, the words in their proper meaning and context. It's kind of like, me and a brother was talking, and I've heard others talk about this as well. And pardon my son up there. He's just, he's he's become the little big bully. He's been bullying his bigger brother. It used to be the other way around. It used to be him bullying the other, but somehow he got courage, and he's now the bully of the family. Once he realized what he could do, like, oh, I could do this. It's like, oh man, here we go. Um, they call it the terrible twos. The terrible twos. But me and a brother was talking about um, the language. We're talking about the language, like the common language that we use amongst each other versus the legal language that people in the legal arena use, people in business use, people that really get into like official contracts and whatnot. It's a different language than the run-of-the-mill English language that we use out here in the streets, and perhaps elsewhere in the arena that we call the work world and whatnot. It's a different English. It's a different language. You understand, in so many ways. And so when they use this language, it actually has an effect because it means the power words that they want to use to make things happen. And many of us, we don't get anywhere because we're not even communicating the words that would make them move. You understand? We're saying things, based upon how we feel, words that reflect our emotions or whatever. And they look at that, they listen to that. Well, that doesn't really move a mountain at all. So if you really listen to like elites in the business world, and if you ever look at some of these, I've seen organizations where they'll have certain conversation with ones like I, but then they'll go behind closed doors to talk to ones of their own. They're like their own colleagues. They'll go out of sight. We're not privy to their conversation, and sometimes you'll find that they're communicating in a whole different way than they would with the regular population. Like, if you don't understand what I'm saying, go chill with one of these people on a golf course and listen to how they talk with each other. Listen to their way of communication with each other versus how they talk to you. And even that is still, partial to the way they talk when you're not even on the scene at all. Because they know what they need to say amongst each other. That's why I'm saying this as we get into this. The very title of chapter 1 is, what is power? What is power? The definitions of power are various and conflicting. This is due to mainly the multifarious nature of power itself, rather than due to its unreality or ephemeral spirit. Few, if any of us, doubt the reality of power and the tangible effects its application engenders. Our confusion as to its exact definition more likely flows from the fact that power, depending on context and circumstances, assumes ubiquitous shapes and forms, varying degrees of transparency and visibility. Power is a chameleon. It takes on the texture of its environment. And this is exactly what I'm explaining. Like, what you and I may have learned or believe power to be is a whole different meaning when you actually hear it spoken of by the people who actually know that they are empowered, and are actually in the position to do something with it. It is not our purpose here to untangle the web of power definitions. It is not necessary for us to do so. However, A review of a number of definitions and of several forms of power will provide an intuitive understanding of its essential meaning, which is all that it which is all that is necessary to our mission. Power comes with being, an interactive existence with being alive. It is the essence of life and the motive force of growth and development and of the adaptability of living things to environmental changes and demands. I don't know what kind of interviews you guys have been involved in, like whether it be job interviews or interviews for a particular career. Like I'm a little boy there. Are you laughing? He's over here laughing. But they'll have like a diagram and they'll show different bullet points of what they are trying to imply as empowerment. Let's see here. I don't know if I still have that out. I don't see it. But you could look this up. Look up, like power in business management. If you look up something like power in business management, and you'll see like the bullet points that a lot of employers, like human resource managers, will use when they're having these mass meetings, um, seminars. You understand? If you've ever been to a seminar, they'll have some bullet points of what they want to present to you as power. And what you'll see is a lot of these tend to be superficial or they're not fully powerful. They're more empowering your egos. You understand? They're more making you feel like you're great. You can do it. You can do it. You've got to believe in yourself. Hyping you up. Well, you can believe in yourself all you want. If you don't got the prerequisites, if you don't have the tools, you don't have any power. If you don't have the right understanding of what this is, you don't have any power, as much as you want to convince your ego that you do. Shalom, peace, and blessings. Power refers to the ability to do, the ability to be. Listen, the ability, not you believing that you just have it, but you actually have the ability. Power refers to the ability to do, the ability to be, the ability to prevail. These are the prerequisites right there. You just, having this great self-esteem, that may be part of the puzzle in one sense, but to actually be able to get up and manifest it, that's a whole nother level. To actually have the tools. See, we could talk all kinds of yang, all kinds of smack to an enemy who's fully empowered, who has the weapons to take you out of the picture without two blinks of the eye. You can say whatever you want. And in a way, you're at the mercy of how much patience they may have with you. And the minute that patience runs out, you'll see who's got the power and who's just running their mouth. I mean, and you see that in the streets. Who's got the power, who's running their mouth. Is a difference. And it doesn't matter how much that person believes in himself to have this power. If it's just not there, it's not there, and it don't matter what he does or he or she does. And that's one of the problems in this world today, is this false illusion of empowerment versus real power. To be powerless is to be will-less, impotent. I skipped a line, pardon me. Beingness and aliveness originate with power. Let me say that again. Beingness and aliveness originate with power. Your very presence, being, is a manifestation of, I would say, divine power. To be powerless is to be will-less, impotent, and lifeless, without effect or influence, to be nothing, of no account. Thus we concur with Rollo May when he contends that power is essential for all living things. Man, in particular, cast on this barren crust of earth, eons ago with the hope and the requirement that he survive, finds he must use his powers and confront opposing forces at every point in his struggle with the earth and with his fellows. Look, family, just your very anatomy is, like I said, a manifestation of power. Right now, your body is fighting off so many different forces, so many different elements, so many different things in the environment itself that's trying to attack it and beat it down, break it down, take it down, right? And your body has to maintain its resolve and has to maintain its activity to keep your body empowered so it can be able to help you defend, your presence here while you manifest in this form. The unimpeded intentionality of living systems, listen, including especially human beings, is self-realization and self-actualization, the fulfillment of genetic potential or possibilities. This intentionality must be empowered to be realized. Thus, the paraphrase Friedrich Nietzsche's, wherever we find the will to live, there we find the will to power. Power is essential to our existence and the most influential factor in determining our quality of life. As Wartenberg contends, power is one of the central phenomena of human social life. And as Parity argues, all sorts of interpersonal, and we may add intergroup, relationships can be seen as involving power, including between lovers or between parent and child. Power. There is no escaping its presence in some form. There is no escaping its use by others to influence in some form our person, our minds, in behavior, and our own use of it to influence the person's mind and behavior of others. It often tickles me when I hear people say, I don't have any leader. I'm my own leader. I don't follow anyone. But the fact of the matter is, some form of fashion, you're following someone, whether it be their philosophy, their principles, their values, their character. You're following someone at all given times. Your parents, you understand? You're someone that you really look up to. Whoever, in some form of fashion, there's always someone leading and someone following. And every leader has a follower, and every follower can be potentially a leader. Shalom, peace and blessings. And really, for anything to function and operate right, there has to be this kind of apparatus that works this way. Otherwise, nothing can be and maintain. Even the way your anatomy works, your physical body works, it has to have a hierarchy. There has to be a hierarchy for this body to function properly. So, that's the nature of power. We deny the ubiquity of power to our peril. It does not vanish from reality or lose its influence by our refusal to acknowledge its existence. Therefore, we are behooved to recognize its permanent reality and make the best of it, control it, and use it to good purpose. Power in and of itself can be both a detrimental and a beneficial aspect of social relationships, and can be made to play the negative as well as the positive role in the constitution of human social life. Wartenberg. Power can be utilized to achieve personal, social, political, and material ends if it is appropriately developed, organized, and applied. The question of whether power is beneficial or harm can only be answered in regard to the specific use to which it is put in a particular situation. Let me mind you, if I could say, you notice that the term power has nothing to do with whether it's good or evil. Of course, our nature would desire, that power is demonstrated justly, righteously, for the good. But power is indiscriminate. It can be in anyone's hands. What I'm saying, it could be anyone that has the prerequisites for wielding power can possess it and manifest it. Is power in and of itself is neither a good or evil thing. It just is what it is. It's power. Many in our audience will find this discussion of power disturbing or diseasing. Having been victimized by the abuse and misuse of power, often crushed by the powers that be, the reader who identifies himself as among the powerless or as a member of a relatively powerless group, example, an African American, will be the more perturbed by our discussion. The oppressed and downtrodden, having been traumatized by the abuse of power by their powerful oppressors, often come to perceive power itself as inherently evil, as by nature corrupting, and therefore as something to be eschewed, denied, and renounced. The pursuit of power is viewed as unworthy of virtuous persons, and the desire to possess it as sinful. Therefore, many among the powerless and the poor feel compelled to find in their powerlessness and poverty the emblematic signs of their godliness and the redemptive salvation. Think about the trap that can put a person's mind in. Imagine if you're sitting down and you believe that you can't get up, and because you find yourself in that predicament, you believe that even the thought of getting up is an arrogant thought. Why? How dare me even think of getting up and standing up on my own feet? But instead, I'll just be humbled and sit down here in the corner of the sidewalk or whatnot, and not get up. That's a defeative mentality. I was thinking here, when we I can't even hold into the thought because there's too many things that I could go at with that, and anybody that knows me, it could take us on a whole nother branch of conversation. So let's stay focused. My point is that, like I said, power in and of itself it has nothing to do with good or evil. It's simply what it is. Obviously, in the hands of a righteous individual or collective, it's going to manifest differently than it would in the hands of someone who has corrupt intentions or evil and wicked intentions. Thus, in one case, we would say that's abuse of power. In other case, it would be, proper demonstration of power. So, but power in itself, you understand, to see it as something like it's being pointed out here as shameful to reach for. That's a self-defeated type of a position to put yourself. Let's continue. Just sharing thoughts as we read along. Commentary, as I mentioned. How convenient a percept for rationalizing and maintaining the power of the haves over the have-nots. As the result of their ideological manipulation by the powerful and their own reactionary misperception of reality, the poor and powerless have been made to perceive the pursuit, possession, and application of power in their own behalf as unbecoming of themselves. This is even more the case when, through their naive acceptance of the self-serving deception propaganda perpetuated by the powers that be, their own reactionary self-negation, and their nursing of their internalized inferiority complexes, the poor huddled masses perceive the possession and exercise of power as the inherent and exclusive prerogative of the ruling class or races. There's no problem. Responding to the commentary there. There are many blacks who have been convinced by racist propaganda that supreme power is divinely deeded to dominant whites. And I just want to give a little side note to show you how far this goes. It goes insofar that ancestral personalities that are clearly ancestral personalities, and even those that might be mythological that derive from our ancestral cultural background, we have to this day we have been taught to see them in the likeness of the people who are currently in power. And so people that would have been ethnically melanated, for example, we see pictures of them rendered, reinforcing the empowerment of the empowered in their likeness. And even though all the relevant details or descriptions of the individuals reveal that, hey, these are our ancestors, these are people that are in our likeness, we ignore that and say, no, they couldn't have been. They must have looked like the image of our rulers, of the people in power. So much so that we hate things that appear in our likeness, and will favor things that appear in the likeness or appear in the mannerisms of the empowered, because we will say that, okay, well, they're empowered, they're like this, they're successful, that must be the proper way, that must be the right way, the right look, the right style, the right move. You see, and by having this mentality, we actually reinforce that empowerment that the currently empowered have, rather than resurrect, restore, revive all of those same elements within ourselves. Like one person put it, to be able to see from our own people, our heroes, our adepts, our elites, and so on. Coffee. Yeah, so I'm gonna read that again. There are many blacks who have been convinced by racist propaganda that supreme power is divinely deeded to to dominant whites. They therefore suffer anxiety attacks and feel as if they are blasphemously rebelling against God himself. If they, even for a moment, seriously consider conspiring to wrest power from the hands of their oppressors. More unfortunate than this sorely mistaken theological perception is the self-abnegating perception by many blacks that they are inherently incapable of mounting a successful campaign against oppressive white power, and therefore must sulkily seek the least onerous accommodation to it. Like that can't beat them, join them mentality. Oh, what can we do? What do we do? This perception of an orientation toward power on the part of African peoples is but a prescription for their unending subordination, exploitation, and ultimately, when it is convenient to the purposes of their oppressors, their genocidal demise. Meaning, they don't even have to do the killing. We'll kill ourselves to make it more convenient for the oppressor. How does that, yeah. Yeah. Therefore, if they are to survive and prosper in freedom, then, like it or not, African peoples must come to terms with power. We must be ever conscious of the fact that the establishment, whatever rewards it gives us, will also, if necessary to maintain its control, kill us. Let me say that again, in case we didn't hear that. Well, we must be ever conscious of the fact that the establishment, whatever rewards it gives us, will also, if necessary to maintain its control, kill us. The topology of power. The topology of power In perhaps its most general sense, Rollo May defines power as the ability to cause or prevent change. Listen to that again. The ability to cause or prevent change. Little side note here. In our effort to empower ourselves, we had those who stood up and who put themselves in the forefront to make the proper moves for said empowerment. The adversary, the movers of this systemic racism that you see manifesting in our time, took note of this and took note of the momentum that was building up as a result of ones like this, and said we need to develop a scheme in order to hinder this progress in some way. We saw this in the case of Malcolm X, for example, Malik el-Shabazz, when Malik el-Shabazz was starting to build momentum. We saw this in the case of Marcus Garvey, when Marcus Garvey was starting to build momentum, starting to build empowerment. When empowerment was starting to increase, they took note and said, we've got to find some way to stop this momentum, because if this momentum builds up, it's not going to look good for the home team. And so you see that they've done this repeatedly, especially when it's starting to become clear that this is actually something going on that can make a difference, that can change things, that can change. So they, in their currently empowered position, made moves or attempts, if you will, because it's not over yet. As long as we live on this planet Earth, it's not over, to change or prevent any empowering effects that we might strive for. Power is fundamentally ambivalent in that it exists in both Latin and manifest forms. It's both stabilizing and destabilizing, both a causal factor in bringing about certain changes in social and environmental circumstances, as well as in preventing them. Power may conceivably be refer. Ah, man, talk about a tongue twister. Power may conceivably refer to the ability to achieve a desired goal, or to the ability to willfully wrest or overcome certain social and environmental conditions imposed on oneself by others, or the ability to impose on others against their will or outside their awareness certain social, environmental circumstances, and behavioral demands. Let me point out to you, if you look at things on a political scale, there are conflicts going on abroad. And you notice that it's the type of conflict that's going on is starting to grow and build more and more of a kind of momentum. As it stands right now, you can see that it involves sides that are all somewhat equally empowered. The thing you may not notice is that on one side, they're working through the guise of a cause, of a theme, if you would, while the other one, it's more what you see is more upfront. If you want to understand what I'm talking about in my wordage right here, just take a look at your everyday world news headlines. And just do your homework, really. Just do your homework and pay attention. You understand? And so, give me a second here. Oh, all right. So, okay, family. Let's see here. I had to pause just for a minute. Just taking a look at the commentary. So let me read that part again. Power may conceivably refer to the ability to achieve a desired goal, or the ability to willfully wrest or overcome certain social and environmental conditions imposed on oneself by others, or the ability to impose on others against their will or outside their awareness certain social, environmental circumstances, and behavioral demands. Instances of defining power as the ability to or power to include the definition of power as the ability to get what one wants, parenti, as the capacity of some persons to produce intended or unforeseen effects on others, wrong, or as the ability a person or group has to produce intended effects upon the world around them, to realize their purposes within it, whatever these purposes happen to be. Power as the power over, in contrast to power as the power to, emphasizes the use of power by one person or group to constrain or restrict the possibilities or options of another person or group. Power over refers to power that is exercised over an agent, i.e., a person or group, when he is not able to act freely, that is, with a full set of possibilities available to him. Wartenberg replicates the concept of power over more clearly in the following statements. An agent who acts in a context in which someone else has power over her is not able to do as she wishes, but faces a situation in which the structure of her action environment is in the control of someone else. She is therefore not in the normal circumstances of human action, and as a result, her responsibility for her actions is modified. I can put that in a more a positive perspective for us people who are perhaps people of scripture. We are under the power of the Most High, and so our actions, if we're striving to be righteous, are within the parameters of the power of the Most High. We actually, if we're really studious to the scriptures, we actually believe that the Most High's power is all encompassing, that it couldn't be any other way. There's no way to supersede or go outside of the parameters of divine power. In the case of community, you have a power structure. In the case of a government, you have a power structure, and you have parameters. You also have a mental power structure. The mental power structure being the confinements of your own mind, that which you know. If you know more, it has the potential to increase your parameters of how you're able to interpret the reality around you. The less you know, the smaller those parameters become. Okay, so instances of defining power as power over include the definition of power as the possibility of imposing one's will upon the behavior of other persons. Weber. The ability to influence or control the actions of others to get them to do what we want them to and what they would otherwise not have done. And finally, as the capacity to affect the conduct of individuals through the real or threatened use of rewards or punishment. Again, terms that that many of us should be somewhat familiar with. Give me a second here. Reorganizing something here, and yes, indeed, family. I just want to take this time here to enlarge. Okay, there we go. It was kind of tangled. The person or groups which possesses and implies power over another person or groups is thereby enabled to structure and restrict the action range of the subordinate person or group, and to limit the options available to him or it. Power over, as defined above, characterizes the primary power relationship between whites and blacks. As such, it essentially defines the character of white supremacy relative to black subordination. Power, whether as power to or power over, manifests itself in a variety of forms or types. We shall briefly define certain types or forms of power and their relevance to white racist domination and exploitation of blacks, and to the necessity of blacks to develop the power to end such domination and exploitation. Yes, indeed. I highly recommend that you get this book. By the way, I'll just remind you, if you'd like to get a copy of the PDF, just email a brother, and I'll try to have this ready for you so that the next time when we continue this reading, you'll be able to, uh, participate. I'd also encourage you, brothers and sisters, to show your support to the Soul Journey of Life platform efforts and whatnot. You see the Cash App there. It is there for your benefit and ease to show some love and support, because your support does make actions and elements like what you see right here possible, and so much more become possible that are all about the overall element that Soul Journey of Life is about. And that's primarily, you understand, being a an active personality, standing up for the cause, supporting those who support the cause and whatnot, and being an advocate to unity of our people. And not just any kind of advocate. Not we're not into being pushovers or cowardly or slandering one another, backbiting one another, any kind of coonery, none of that. We're not into any of that. We're into a strong, solid effort to see our people as, honorable, respectful, and that outside of what I want to say, unity is front and foremost in our efforts to strive. And in that effort, one of the things I'm an adamant believer of is that knowledge is key. You understand? I believe that the more we build, reading, researching like we're doing now, studying like we're doing now, this increases, our potential for unity. It brings about a greater understanding for what we're standing for. You understand? It's one thing to stand up, and because you see everyone else standing up, like, oh, they're standing up, so I should stand up too. But it's a whole nother thing when you understand why. When you have an understanding why, when you're aware of why, and when you do the things, when you make the moves that reinforce your resolve. You understand? Removing any type of hypocrisy from you, removing any type of any of these weaknesses, any of these things that hold us back. You understand? Jealousies, the envies, the false prides. Removing all these things so that we can see the bigger picture. So yes, indeed. And whatever support you do present is definitely appreciated. It's definitely something that I say to you, Asante Sana, in advance. Okay, give me a second here. So, force as power. Power as force involves the exercise of biological and physical means to prevent another person or group from doing what he or it prefers to do, or to get something to happen to the person or group that he or it would prefer it not to. That's kind of like a dog on a chain, if you ask me, because the whole purpose of having that dog on the chain is to kind of control and limit its ability to do what it intends or what it's choosing to do. It's got this chain which is limiting it to the length of the chain and your ability to hold it back In the case of a dog, in the dog's perspective, that might not, feel so good. But in the case of the person who has the chain, that's the quote unquote master of the dog, it might be in the best interest of the dog, even though the dog doesn't know it. Think about that when it comes to um, empowerment. Because ideally, power in the wrong hands could be corrupt. Power in the wrong power without the proper knowledge backing it, it could be ill use or misuse power. Now, um, reading here to continue to read here the commentary. So it makes a difference. It makes a difference as to the order, the if you would, the hierarchy of how power is manifesting. Is this book one for winter research reading? I'm reading. This is I'm not sure that this book has a like a sequel or whatnot. As we mentioned, at the beginning, it does show that this author authored another book called Black on Black. So outside of that, I'm not aware of like any sequel to the book or any kind of continuation or partition. So force may be utilized instrumentally rather than directly to achieve certain ends. The instrumental use of force may involve its use to inhibit or destroy another person's or group's ability to develop and mobilize his or its human and material resources, which might be used against the interests of the powers that be. The strategic and tactical purpose of instrumental force is to limit or eliminate the subordinate individuals or groups' capacity to act in certain ways. Instrumental force may be used to establish in the mind of the subordinate person or group the power holder's capability and willingness to use force as an instrument of punishment for non-compliant behavior on his or its part. It also may be used as a means of motivating the non-complying party to return to or to reestablish a pre-existing power relation. Force, per se, rather than being utilized as the primary and exclusive means of exerting power over another, may serve more to reinforce or back up other forms of power relations to be discussed below. That is, force, although a reality in many social situations, achieves its full scope by undergirding other types of power. Wartenberg. In so-called advanced societies like the United States, force is more likely to be applied as the final persuader or arbiter when compliance is not attained by other means. Yes, indeed. Right. Force. Keyword, force. And, it's interesting when you look at the means that are used to compel said force in this particular society. And in so many ways, it can be so hypocritical because in one case, you might have, signs of public compassion or public concern. But then you also see, that in other circumstances, there's no hesitation to use force, you understand, against, the wills of civilian peoples, against what you would call moral values or I can't think of the word right now, but where people who are innocent or have not been proven to be have committed any crimes find themselves forced into predicaments that are unjust. force as an efficient power. In the context of the modern nation state, the use of force as the primary regulator of social or power relations, as the primary means of achieving the results desired by power holders, is more often than not inefficient, counterproductive, and fraught with onerous complexities and unintended outcomes. It is also often socially, economically, and materially costly to exert and maintain. Wrong perceptively notes as follows: force is more effective in preventing or restricting people from acting than in causing them to act in a certain way, in a given way. Force can achieve negative effects, the destruction and prevention or limitation of the possibility of action by others. One cannot forcibly manipulate the limbs and bodies of others in order to achieve complex positive results. The fabrication or construction of something, the operation of a machine, the performance of a physical or mental skill. An example comes to mind of what's hinted here, at least from what I can see, is imagine if the jab that was promoted recently in recent times, that has been promoted in recent times, was forced physically, meaning with no regard, no question, no invitation, nothing. Just, bust down the door, jab it into you, right, into your arm. Imagine the reaction that would have come across the land from something like that. Now, consider the actual reality that has manifested: a psychological enforcement. A psychological enforcement brought about through persuasion. You understand? Through persuasion from empowered peoples, elites, persuading you to do something that, had you had the proper knowledge about, had you been properly informed, you would not have made those moves. You would not have moved in that direction. But because many were not properly informed, or because many have been taught to take the elites at their word, at the profession that they have presented to the public, they accept blindly what they proclaim. They accept blindly what they have been encouraged, even if it be against their own health or existence or nature, even if it be against their own will otherwise. I'm being asked, what are the forms of force? Did we let's deal with that. Hold on a second here. Let's pause. We're pausing at what Wertenberger is further stating. I want to explore something here, because I was looking at that word the other day when I was coming across some of these, when I was skimming through the text there. What I'd like to do in response to that is I want to look at synonyms. Oftentimes when you look at synonyms, it can kind of give you like the room or the neighborhood of the use of this word. And depending on the manner in which the word is used, it's going to make a difference. So as a noun, which in this case it would be an idea, strength, we're talking synonyms: strength, power, there's that word again, energy, might, potency, vigor, muscle, stamina, effort, exertion, impact, pressure, weight, impetus, punch, coercion, compulsion, constraint, duress, oppression, enforcement, harassment, intimidation, threats, pressure, pressurization, influence. As an action or as a verb, which would imply an action, break open, force open, burst open, precise or prize open, kick in, knock down, blast, crack, compel, coerce, make, constrain, oblige, impel, drive, necessitate, pressurize, pressure, and push. What comes to mind right now when I'm hearing that is, like, for example, um, understand when you use certain words, some words have a passive aspect to it, an active aspect to it. I'm thinking of like osmosis or something of this, or like what a virus does. You understand? What a virus does is some viruses, they populate inside of another a host. They'll inject their genetics or their germ or their like a seed of a sort into a host cell and start to propagate itself while inside the cell. Once that's achieved sufficiently, it will rupture the cell and continue the process all over again while it attacks other cells. And so what you end up having, um, you have both active and passive forms being demonstrated, because it's passive while it's reproducing itself, because at that time it's not doing anything directly to the cell until it's capable of demonstrating its strength, and that's when it's in numbers. That's when the cell ruptures. I mean, this is a heavy word. Let me do something else here with this word. Let's I agree that this is something. This is these are some words that we really need to we should be encouraged to explore. Okay, how about this? Let's take a look at this word as it's used in association with law enforcement. Right? They're showing different levels here. I'm looking at. It says, what are the levels of use of force? Level 1, officer presence. That means their presence, because you see them there, they, nothing even has to be said. Just their presence gives you the idea that, oh, they're here, I better comply, or I better do something, I better, whatever it is that their presence is supposed to be enforcing, I should do it. Second level, there's my son, verbalization. That means they've said, they've given an order, they've given a command. Nothing, no physical action happening yet, just presence, command, and the command is, is spoken in a way to enforce whatever is being forced. Level 3 shows empty hand control. And I might assume that that might be something like, for example, if you see where somebody's being asked to leave the facility, and some people show up and they kind of put a hand on your arm or shoulder, kind of emphasizing that, well, you need to go, like a bouncer or something, right? Level 4, less lethal methods, and that might, that might be, putting you to the ground. You understand? Holding you down, restraint. Then lethal, what lethal force would be. That would be taking you out, or perhaps maiming you, or injuring you in a way that could be fatal, that could take you, that could end your life. So that's I was reading there. The context is, what are levels of use of force. Let me I'm doing this for a reason, because I want to switch the words around, because that was me simply putting in force, levels of, and then it kind of gave that kind of a result. But I want to switch the words around. Because sometimes when you say a word a certain way, it changes meaning entirely. Sometimes. So here, excuse me. Number 4 was the non-deadly use of force. I was looking for. And see, all these examples, it's funny, or not funny, but it's interesting, I should say, that the examples that are given are all examples that are associated with law enforcement. Enforcement levels, continuum of force levels. Huh. Wow. Hmm. That's something that we had that you, I would say you'd have to dig in deeper about, because there's a lot of details, but it's a lot more just dealing with law enforcement or those people who are in positions of a power or authority. Another word used: power, force, authority. So here, all right. Let me see. Pardon me just a second here. I'm just doing a little bit of looking. All right. All right. Let's continue with Wartenberg's further notes. It's 3 empty hand control. I thought 3 was let me go back to that. Yeah. So the levels that you had, the levels of use of force. Level 1, just so you guys, if you guys are taking note, level 1, presence, officer's presence. Level 2, verbalization, verbal commands. Level 3, empty hand control. Level 4, less lethal methods. Level 5, lethal force. And to be honest, I learned something of this prior to this, me even looking at this, from an old ancient passage that says, when you see an evil, then think about this and compare it with these levels. When you see an evil, first remove it with your hands. That's the first thing it suggests. It says first remove it with your hands. And if you're not capable, and compare this with these levels here, and think about this. If you see an evil, first remove it with your hands. Then if you're not able to do that, remove it with your tongue. And if you're not able to do that, then remove it with your heart, meaning your consciousness, right? Your inner mind, if you would. Meaning that in you is a desire that this evil would stop, right? But think about that. A physical action is demonstrated first, right? And considered to be the most effective. And this is an ancient wisdom. This is an ancient saying, right? And it's saying that the first thing to do to deal with an evil is an action, a physical action. And then if you're not able to do the physical action, a verbal action. And if you're not able to do the verbal action, then it leads to desire that a difference would have been made. And it said that that's the least of the three. All right. Let's see here. So continuing, Wartenberg's further notes, force is uneconomic for a number of reasons. In the first place, it requires that the dominant agent make some physical effort in order to keep the subordinate agent from doing what she would otherwise do. As a result, maintaining the use of force requires a constant expenditure of energy by the dominant agent. Force is also uneconomic because it inherently occasions resistance. It is always perceived by those over whom it is used as a hostile presence, an alienating experience that restricts their ability to act. Because of this, it engenders a dynamic of resistance in those over whom it is exercised. Thus, force by itself is less effective as a means of power than is often assumed. Think about something like a referee. Think about how you feel when you see the referee on the court, on the basketball court, right? And the purpose of the referee is to kind of, balance the game, make sure the rules in the game are being followed, right? But you ever notice how when the referee makes a call, one side feels uneasy about it, even if it's the right call. Somebody's got something ill to feel about what the referee has to say. Like, didn't you see? Or if they don't call something that the whatever party relevant party sees should have been called, there's something to say about that. So there's something about being in a position of enforcing power that makes the person who's subjected to that enforcement feel uneasy. So think about this, family, because one of the things that we move for is policing ourselves, right? This is this would be a bold undertaking, and it would be a bold undertaking because when you understand that we're advocating those from amongst ourselves, meaning they know us, they are familiar with us, they know our ways, they know who we are, how we are, why we are, whatever, etc., etc. Understand how we already are when it comes to dealing with one another without the element of any kind of enforcement from amongst ourselves going on. How we are, if someone knows more or demonstrates more or whatever the case may be, think about the things that cause us to bump heads when we do bump heads with one another. Oftentimes, it ends up being some of the most minute things that cause us to do that, and hardly when you look at the ratio, things that are factors. We tend to be no-shows when it comes to things that factor, that things we should be in each other's faces about. You know what I'm saying? Reasons to be in each other's faces about. It's not common, but for things that don't really weigh enough, you would see someone in another person's face in a heartbeat. So imagine we're empowered from amongst ourselves to police ourselves. Imagine how that would affect us. Seeing ourselves in a position of empowerment, telling ourselves what to do and what not to do. Are you ready for something like that? Are you ready to understand why something like that is essential, vital even? Because these are some of the elements that will come from harnessing empowerment, real, true self-determination, not just a catchword, but real true self-determination. These are some of the these are some of the ingredients. These are some of the of what we are striving to uh, regain the chains of, regain the control of for ourselves. It's not just the pretty stuff. It's not just the ability to not be oppressed by an enemy any longer that we're striving for, but it's also the ability to take on self-determination. That requires control. That requires order. And if you do anything that involves order, it's going to also require it to be enforced. That there are rules, that there are rules that are enforced. You can't have it where in any other way. You can't think, well, I'm free, but there's no order, there's no structure, there's no lines, there's no parameters that we have to abide by or stand within if we're to be successful as a whole, as a nation, as a people. This order has to be there. That means if there's order there, there's enforcement there, regardless of who is in power. If we're empowered amongst ourselves to rule over ourselves, there's going to be shot callers. There's going to be people whose position is to enforce whatever it is we've put amongst ourselves as the way to go. Hope that was understood. The problematics of using unadorned force as the chief instrument of power utilized by the dominant group to achieve complex social material ends with economic efficiency and the barest minimum of social disruption motivates the group to develop and apply more subtle forms of power. These will be discussed below. However, at this juncture, we should note that the current forms of domination of continental Caribbean, North, Central, and South American Africans, respectively, by Europeans, is secured by more subtle and efficient means of political control than by the use of oppressive physical force. Because physical force alone won't get the job done. You understand? You think about how many more people are manipulated and controlled by twisted propaganda, forms of deceit, forms of misinformation, miseducation over the people who are being dealt with physical force. I would imagine that the people who are being dealt with physical force are fewer than those people who have been mentally deceived and controlled, you understand, and corrupted. There's more of those than the latter. After all, when you look at the ratio, when you look at the media, even what we see in the media, you see periodically the people who have been oppressed with police brutality and their lives have been lost compared to the massive amounts of people who respond to mass deception. I mean, you don't have to go too far to do your research on that. Just last year alone, not just last year, but the last couple of years, mass deception across the entire country took place. And I believe, if I remember last, it was like 65% of the world population on Earth was deceived in with this gimmick that they were led to believe into taking upon themselves, even though the knowledge at the same time was being spread around to its contrary, to reasons why to avoid. I'm just saying, if you look at the percentage, it didn't take force for that. It didn't take it didn't take physical force for people to be so easily led astray. All you had to do was put a ball game on the screen. All you had to do was put popular faces or a system that people have been taught to believe in through the years as being in their favor, in their interest, well-meaning to them, even showing their so-called or would-be leader so-called, because it's for those who believe that this system is actually working for them, demonstrating before all, look, you see, even I am getting this treatment. You don't know what's going on within that jab. You know, as far as you know, water could have been pumped into that person and you would have known no different. But you said, oh, well, he means well, it's all good, so let's just follow suit. Dumb, deaf, and blind. Even while at the same time, researchers are telling you that this is not what it seems. That this isn't even fully developed work. It's still wanting in research. They're telling you this in front of your face. But still, people like bobbleheads carry on. So my point in saying that is simply to put forth the fact that it doesn't really take too much physical force to push you to move in the direction that those empowered wish you to move. Which should be more compelling of a reason for those who desire to self-determination, to take on the knowledge of how to become empowered, you understand, as an individual, as a people, you understand, to become solidly empowered. What's interesting is that people amongst us who are empowered from amongst our own, we get very suspicious about them. We get very suspicious because in our minds, how are they empowered? How are they living autonomous lives? How are they living in ways that it seems to be out of our reach? I don't have to mention any names, but you know that there's certain melanated brothers and sisters who are in positions of power, and oftentimes many of us will communicate words of suspicion. Well, he must be working for the people, or working for the other people, them. He must be working for them. He must be an agent. He must be doing this, because we've been led not to believe that it's possible for us as melanated people, black people, to be empowered. We've been led to believe that this is how when you look outside, you don't see too much empowerment of our own going on. So we believe. But if you do the numbers financially, if you do the numbers on so many things that influence the world in the present day and historically, you will see where the seeds of empowerment start. For whatever the reason, it's like we take this glow and pass it on to someone else instead of cultivate it amongst ourselves. So let's see here. Former Caribbean countries and the social assimilation of African American into the mainstream. Okay, let me read this paragraph again. I'm gonna have to read it again. Make sure we're staying on track. The problematics of using unadorned force as the chief instrument of power, utilized by a dominant group to achieve complex social material ends with economic efficiency, and the barest minimum of social disruption motivates that group to develop and apply more subtle forms of power. These will be discussed below. However, at this juncture, we should note that current forms of domination of continental, Caribbean, North, Central, and South American Africans, respectively, by Europeans, is secured by more subtle and efficient means of political control than by the use of oppressive physical force. Consequently, the independence of African countries and former Caribbean countries and the social assimilation of African Americans into the mainstream of white America by no means represents the lessening of Europe and Euro-American domination of or a fundamental change in the nature of European and African power relations in favor of the Africans as persons so erroneously assume. You know, real quick, that's something that, I think that many of us have either become numb to or fallen asleep regarding, that we've literally been absorbed into the identity of another people. So much so that when you bring this up, you understand? When you bring this up, people assume that this is the way it's supposed to be. It should be this way. It should be that we've lost our ethnic national identity and taken on a concept, an identity of another people, and this has become normalized. This has become who we are now. So much that mentioning ancestral titles, people will look at you like you're a joke, and they would even refuse to identify you by that. No, you're not this. You are this. You're just a black person. You're not this national title that you once were known by. Thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, you were known by these titles, but no, you're not that. You are stuck with just being black, and that's it. You are stuck with just being Afro-American, and that's it. And you are just stuck with being subjected to this system, and that's it. The nerve you have to think that you are a nation. The nerve that you have to think that you were a people. No, you're not. You're one. You're ours. You have to operate according to our description of you, our perception of you, our definition of you. That's how you must live your life. And you think that enslavement ceased to exist? Oh yeah, you don't have too far to go. All you have to do is open your mouth and say just a few words, and you will be showing proof that enslavement continues. Just say a few words. We're reading right now. We're reading in a system of words that bear witness to this. But for some reason, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the natural accord of things. Quite to the contrary, these historically apparent social political changes instead represent the increased subtlety and efficiency of European domination of African peoples. It should be noted that the ability to use physical materialistic force as the final arbiter of power relations still lies overwhelmingly in the hands of Europeans and Euro-Americans. It is this force differential that Africans across the diaspora must in some way resolve. Again, it is this. You could say this, that, or the other, but bottom line is, it is this force differential that Africans across the diaspora must in some way resolve, neutralize, or frustrate if they are to gain true parity with Europeans and Euro-Americans, and indeed gain their liberation from European domination. There's no other way. You can try to think you can pray it away, wash it away, dream it away. It's not going to go away until it's made to go away, until it's forced to go away, until it's forced to respect that there's something else there. You know, as it is right now, we are kind of, it's like, imagine, I was talking about osmosis earlier. Imagine what happens to a piece of bread in a bucket of water over about a week's time. When you come back to that bucket of water, you no longer see the bread, because osmosis has completely permeated every aspect of where the bread once was. And that's an example of a nation being torn apart. Similarly, you find the cases, imagine a neutron star absorbing the energy of a greater star. like the size of the sun. Over the course of time, that star ceases to be, because all of its energy, all of what made it what it once was, has been absorbed by an inferior body. I mean, this is the reality check. This is the reality check, family. So using another variation of force, we need to reinforce our perception of reality. We need to reinforce, because as long as I like the terms that were used by our brother Amos in this, when he says it is this force differential that Africans across the diaspora must some way resolve, neutralize, or frustrate. See, it's saying to you that, look, these are the options we have to work with. Somehow, one of these things, one or all the above, has to be manifested to get any results. The alternative is you to accept a kind of enslavement, perpetual enslavement, to accept that this must be what your destiny is to be. You're destined to just be subservient all your generations, because that's just what it is. Bull. That's madness. That's madness if you surrender and throw yourself into that fire. That's madness. Mm-hmm. He says, this force, what force? What force differential? Yeah. We'll read that again. He says it is this force differential. This force differential is what's been pointed out. I'm gonna read up above, and we'll comb through that when it's talking about the Euro-American domination. Let's see here, because it's really in that whole chunk. Okay, let's just go right here. Quite to the contrary of the let me give you the context here. Consequently, the independence of African countries and former Caribbean countries and the social assimilation of African Americans into the mainstream of white America by no means represents lessening of European or Euro-American domination of, or a fundamental change in the nature of European and African power relations in favor of the Africans, as the person so erroneously assumes. In other words, you see examples of so-called independence. People, countries, communities expressing independence, but all the while them being subordinate to European authority in some form or fashion, finding that they have to bow, bend the knee, humble themselves to European collective dictatorship across the globe. But at the same time, this idea of it's kind of like holding face or saving the image or name or title or idea that these people are autonomous, independent, while in fact that's not always the case. I often put this challenge out. I say like this. Maybe this will make some sense if I can break it down like this. When you go to certain countries, you'll look and find that they have an official language. And this is a language, official language. I mean, this is the language of the government. This is the language the government has to use for its commerce, for its operation, for any type of legalese. This is the official language of the country. And as you look at what is their official language, not just what language is commonly spoken. I'm not asking what language is commonly spoken there. I'm asking what is the official language that's used, because that's the language of the people that's ruling them. That's the language of the people. Whatever your official language is, that's the language of the people ruling you, regardless of who you think is ruling you. If you are populated by a people speaking Hausa, right? But the official language is English. The population is speaking Hausa, but your official language is English. And you can't say, well, I don't want that to be the official language. We speak Hausa here, so Hausa is going to be the official language. If you are not able to enforce that, and someone is telling you, no, that can't be, it must be that English is the official language here. Why? Because we say so. If you do not have this as your official language, we will take this, we will do these sanctions, we will cut this off, we will stop that. That's telling you who's actually in power, who's actually able to enforce power, regardless of whatever the identities may try to demonstrate. So let's read. I'm gonna have to read this paragraph again because what the question is being asked here, what force differential is in the context of this paragraph in and of itself. And that's why I gave you that little effort of explanation. Got to take a deep breath because there's some reading going on here. We're reading. The problematics of using an unadorned force as the chief instrument of power utilized by a dominant group to achieve complex social material ends with economic efficiency and the barest minimum of social disruption motivates that group to develop and apply more subtle forms of power. Many of the colonized countries or conquered countries of the world, you'd be surprised to find out how many this was done so by a smaller population of people, by a smaller group of people. Many you'll find if you do some history that often it wasn't overwhelming forces that conquered. It wasn't overwhelming forces. It was little parties or groups, you understand, that established further developed means of warfare. And sometimes before they even got to that point, the invasion was already established by politics, by clergy. So by the time the guns got ashore, most of the war was already done. Because my brother, you're my brother in Christ, rode ashore. So the defeat was already there before the guns showed up. The minds were already convinced that this is my brother showing up. So who are these guys with the guns? Oh, they're representatives of my brother. They're just here to enforce so that we can believe freely what we're believing that's similar to what they happen to propagate prior to their guns coming ashore. I'm hoping this is making sense because these are levels in which this force comes in and starts to manifest. Wow. And so you end up, think about how many of us, we end up breaking apart. Not because we're actually different people, but because our minds have been changed. Even in this lane here, when you talk about like the conflict between W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey and the different parties like that, that's deeper than you might understand. It goes in further than you might understand when it comes to the level of what's affected the thinking of each side. Because understand, when you've got scholarship on both sides. Effective scholarship, effective people communicating and propagating their ideals. There's a form of empowerment in there. There's a form of empowerment. Unfortunately, I'm gonna say it this way. Unfortunately, you have in this a manifestation of a kind of antichrist. Because the nature of an antichrist is to speak with the voice of the dragon. You understand? Be in the likeness of the people, the likeness of the chosen, but speaking with the voice of the dragon, meaning the voice of the enemy. You will see that this is one of the tactics that are used in warfare. You get someone that can speak on behalf, that can speak in the face of their people, the stuff they like to hear. And this is something that we have to be careful of, because we can get hyped up. We could see politicians, leaders of countries hyping us up with things we like to hear in our ears. We like to hear that fiery talk. You understand? From leaders in different countries or whatnot. And then years go by after they've been put in positions of power, and they flip script and get bought off by the adversary, and then their whole language changes. Their whole conversation changes. And now they start talking with more of the voice of the enemy. Like, well, wait a minute, but you were talking that flame earlier. That's why we crave authenticity, the people of knowledge. They crave authenticity over anything else. Not just what you got to say. Not just the punchlines. We're not just digging the punchlines. We're digging what you do. We're digging authenticity. You understand? That's what we're digging when it comes to the people of knowledge. So there has to be more to empowerment than face value, is what I'm saying. There has to be more to empowerment than what appears on the surface. Or if you have this on the surface, that behind the scenes, more ground level manifestations of power are being established. So let's do this. Because I want to produce another definition here. This is a very, very deep subject of a sort. So there are things that we could do in society. There are things that we could do as we exist, right? That would compel people to respond a certain way, meaning they would have to accept that this is what's going to happen, and there'd be nothing that they could do to prevent it from happening. You understand? Our effort to fight for equality, to fight for self-determination, all the ingredients of national sovereignty. You understand? All of these elements. This isn't a dream. This isn't something that is fictitious. These are things that, when enough hearts and minds hold on to what this means, the ingredients of this, it materializes into reality that can't be. It's like once the snowball starts rolling, it can't be reversed. It's now in motion, and there's nothing that can stop the machine. I was looking up just the term of that question, what is force differential? And it's interesting that I'm looking here at a citation that says universal forces are forces which act equally on all things and which cannot be shielded against. Differential forces are forces which either do not act equally on all things or which can be shielded against. You understand? Which do not act equally on all things. So, as we were saying here with the examples, where on one level, the people are being controlled through their passions, through the things that they desire, or things that look like it appears to be what they desire, while at the same time maintaining the powers that be, maintaining control indirectly. Where now we can go back, they can go back to Europe, or they can go back to wherever they want to be, while at the same time still maintaining power over you, still maintaining that, because you are now thinking in the vein of what they would like you to be thinking. You are thinking in their language. You are thinking in their methodology, and you see your own as inferior. You understand? So why would you pick up your own methodology? Why would you pick up your own way? Because it's clear that the way of the enemies is better than yours, right? Look, in warfare, somebody wins, somebody loses, right? And the thing about the victor is, now in the position of victory, they're able to reinforce what that means to be victorious, what that means to be now the authority. They're able to decide what is authentic and what is fictional. And so they're able to make those type of decisions, being empowered now. Peace and blessings. I asked one time, I said, suppose we were able to have been unified and defend the frontiers of, say, Africa from any kind of Western invasion. What kind of world would have evolved from that? What ideologies, what concepts, what groundbreaking achievements would have occurred from a scenario like that? What would we have learned about ourselves that we could have evolved and moved forward? We may never know, at least not in the way that it was seen. What I'm saying is, we've been taught, or we've been made to look at our own qualities, features, natures, instincts, feats as inferior, as not worthy of developing or investing in or pursuing any further. Because when you're defeated, you understand, or when you've been made to feel or suffer a kind of defeat, it makes everything that's associated with you appear to carry the same weight of defeat. So that you look at what you do, what you are inclined to do, your skills or whatnot. You look at them like, oh man, what can we do? What can we do? You hear people saying, like, well, see, they've got all the guns, they've got all the guns, they've got all the power, they've got everything. What can we do? That's the same voice that we read about in like scriptural context and whatnot when people talk about this beast. What can we do? Who can stand up in the face of this beast? But you end up finding that there is a nature that doesn't quite originate from us. It doesn't quite. We've been taught or miseducated to believe this way, to move in this way. And so, in a sense, there are many of us that have harnessed this defeatist mentality, even though it be against our nature. Even though if we sat and thought and pondered, we're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense to be this way. If you think about the numbers, if you think about the collective, if you think about what we're capable of, what we're made of, what I'm saying is what we're made of psychologically. It doesn't make sense when you think about it. It's like when you think about the ingredients that make up who we are as a people, you wonder how do we find ourselves in such a subordinate position in the first place? I mean, literally, we've influenced the entire world, whether you believe it, whether you understand. If you look at the history, it's ways, it's methods that come from our ancestors and us, even in the present, that have spread across the world. You don't even have to go too far. If you think this is bogus, Google Asians dancing to, you know, like a Lil Wayne song or somebody, or Jay-Z dancing to something that Jay-Z put together, and you'll find somebody over there dancing with skills, imitating styles that they gathered from our own. And that's just on that level. I mean, you could pretty much go into any area and find examples of our mind being emulated in some fashion. Our mind being emulated. You don't have too far to go. It's all over the internet. It's all over social media. It's all over it. Type it in the Google browser and you will find it with ease. Okay. So let's continue. So I said, it should be noted that the ability to use physical militaristic force as the final arbiter of power relations still lies overwhelmingly in the hands of Europeans and Euro-Americans. It is the force differential that's what we're striving to build on, that Africans across the diaspora must in some way resolve, neutralize, or frustrate if they are to gain true parity with Europeans and Euro-Americans, and indeed gain their liberation from European domination. Psychic violence, the most powerful obstacle against the liberation of African peoples from white domination and exploitation, is not the ability of whites to use superior military or police firepower, or their threat to use it against African insurgency, but is their ability to engage in unrelenting psychopolitical violence against the collective African psyche. It is the white monopoly on psychic violence and their devastatingly ingenious use of it against the minds of African peoples, which represents the greatest threat to African survival. Wrong insightfully points out the nature of this form of violence. There is a form of conduct often described as a psychological, or immoral force or violence, which does not fit readily under the rubrics of any of the other forms of power. If physical violence involves inflicting damages on the body of a person, how is one to classify the deliberate effort to affect adversely a person's emotions or his feelings and ideas about himself by verbally or in other symbolic ways insulting or degrading him? If power includes the production of purely mental or emotional effects and is not confined to the eliciting of overt acts, then the psychic assault of, say, a nagging, browbeating spouse or parent, the defamation of the character of a political foe, or even an entire group constitute exercises of power. Damage to the psyche is surely as real as damage to the body. It is plainly not true that sticks and stones may break my bones, but names can never hurt me. Psychic violence, in which the intended effect of the perpetrator is to inflict mental or emotional harm, is continuous with physical violence. In other words, words can hurt too. Words can do damage long before the fist ever got there. The ultimate force in the world is the force of mind. When that force is defeated, all is lost. Indeed, we have to get us back. Dominant whites have used words and symbols to violently and unrelentingly attack oppressed blacks in 1,001 nefarious ways, including the projection of dehumanizing stereotypes and caricatures of them, the falsification of their history and culture, the miseducation of blacks, and the engaging of chronic derisive media attacks on their moral behaviors. I can't even speak right now. Behaviors, intelligence, ways of life, sexuality, physical features, motives, and values. Oh man. Hold on. Coffee. Some tongue twisting words here and everything. Derisive. The final end of the violent white instigated psychic assaults against the collective psyche of blacks is to induce in them states of false consciousness, self-alienation, and self-hatred, so as to irreparably impair their capacity to overthrow their white oppressors through the immobilization of their human and material resources. False consciousness, self-alienation, and self-hatred are conjoining states of mind which motivate oppressed blacks to engage in continuing self-defeating, self-destructive assaults against their own interests and against themselves. Consequently, by these means, blacks are unwittingly manipulated into forming alliances with their oppressors and exploiters, and in disempowering themselves and in empowering those who dominate and exploit them all the more. Yeah, family, this is no light subject. This is no light subject. I want to see something here. That's page 12. Give me a second, because I'm trying to see how it puts these chapters. So yeah, that's what I thought. Ooh, we're barely halfway through the first chapter. We're on page 12. Wow. Yeah, this is why you gotta respect scholarship, family. You gotta respect scholarship, because it takes, I mean, man, I don't know how many of you have ever sat before any professors before who've really done their work, and you appreciate that, when they're giving you discourses, you appreciate it because you know that they did the miles. They did the miles, on what they're talking about. You understand? Whenever I hear like ones like Ivan Van Sertima is one that I really like. You know that he's done the miles. You understand? On the work, he's done the miles. What's his name? Yusuf. I think his name is Yusuf. I can't think of the name. His full name. But my point is, when you look into these black this black scholarship, even if you disagreed with some of these individuals, you see that they've done the miles. You see that they've done the miles. And And I've watched people, you'd be surprised at how many of us, especially when it comes to debates and whatnot, aren't as qualified at it as we think we might be. And a lot of times we debate emotionally and not intellectually. We hear something, it doesn't sound quite like what we want to hear, it doesn't sound quite convenient for us, or it doesn't line up with assumptions that we've made throughout our lives. And so we become tensed about it. We feel some kind of way about it. How dare you say this or speak? But wait a minute. Don't get angry. Is he or she telling you the truth? And if not, or if so, what kind of case do you have that would reveal that that is the case? We're dealing with facts, not how it made you feel throughout your years. You liked that story. You liked how that song was sung, but it was bogus. And now here's ones who've done the footwork, who've done the mouths, telling you so. You just don't want to hear it. You don't want to be told that you might fit under the category of those who are self-destructive blacks. You might fit under the category of those who are self-destructive blacks. I'm just saying. Family. It's something to think about. It's something to think about. Think about back in the days when there was this movement called Ebonics. That was a movement that was an attempt for blacks to establish our own method of communication, albeit under the structure of this language that we've been forced upon. And do you know who was involved in defeating that effort? It wasn't the enemy. It wasn't the oppressors. It was our own people. Because our own people were so convinced that, oh, well, if you're going to speak the English language, you must speak it as well as the British do. You must speak it properly. You're not intelligent if you don't speak proper English. You must be dumb if you're not speaking proper English. Well, wait a minute. The last I checked, this isn't even my native tongue to begin with. If anything, it shows a great measure of intelligence if you're able to take an existing language and reinvent it into a new language altogether for your use. A language that's not even yours, and you're able to take it, redefine it, and communicate it eloquently amongst your own as a whole nother language altogether. Not a dialect, but a whole nother language altogether. That was, to me, that's skill to do that. When you hear brothers and sisters from around the way able to speak certain words and understand one another eloquently, and the words fit grammatical rules. They fit grammatic. They have their own grammatical rules of how this works, how to communicate in this way. That's intelligence. That's not stupidity. That's not ignorance. That's intelligence. So we have to stop belittling the works that originate, that come out of us, when we insist on breaking apart from these chains, when we insist on becoming ourselves again, albeit with the resources we have at our disposal. Stop hating on us. So I feel compelled to pause at this point. Page 12 of the first chapter. As you see, this is a lot going on here, and we've got our homework cut out for us, family. I'm gonna just let you know, we've got our homework cut out. This is no cakewalk. There's a lot of waking up, needing doing, and it's one thing to say you're awake. It's another thing to be able to manifest it and to have the courage, to implement what it is that we're waking up to. So you might want to write down page 12, and we're beginning on the chapter. When we return to continue reading, we'll be reading the chapter that is labeled with coercion as power. Coercion is power. And yeah, I like this, this recommended book, because one thing, it lets you know something about the person who recommended it. You understand? It lets you know something about the person who recommended it, because this isn't no willy-nilly work, scholarly work. This isn't no, simple brochure or booklet or something like that. This is homework that Brother Amos, did. This is homework. You have to appreciate the works that come from our own people. Yusuf, yeah, Yusuf. Yeah, I was thinking of Yusuf. That's exactly Ben Johanan. That's what I was thinking about when I was talking about Yusuf. Scholars, family, scholars. And don't get caught up in that, oh, well, this was a book written in such and such a time. It's relevant. It's scholarly work that's relevant. And scholarly work is not done to be confined to a limiting time frame. True scholarly work is meant to go forward in time. That's the whole purpose of the scholarly work, so that those who come after can benefit off of what was observed then, and use that as momentum, as a launching pad to push forward. Like, okay, we see the game plan here. We see what's going on. We have to work with the tools we have. You understand? We have to work with the tools we have, and these are not no weak, insignificant tools. These are powerful tools. Yes, indeed. And again, continue showing your support to that recommender. All the details are in the description, because this, I mean, the thing about people who don't mean you well, they could be wasting our time. And how would they be wasting their time? By encouraging us to be involved in vanities and things like that. But people who actually mean you well, that's not the case. They're going to be pointing you to things that are relevant, things that can help you to be amongst those who make a difference. Mm-hmm. So, give me a second here. I'm doing something here. So yeah, we're gonna pause at that point. No, I don't want to do that either. All right, I got all these things going on here. All right. Anyway, yeah. I mean, like I said, this book here. Let me go back to the beginning. I already closed it off, but I think it was 19. Seemed like it was in the 1980s or something that I read. Well, okay. Well, the copyright here is showing 1998. but I thought it was done earlier than that. But here says 1998. Okay, so 1998. So 1998, even in 1998, you know, these observations were being made. In 1998, these observations were being made. Yeah. Let's see here. Bear with me here. I'm just making sure. So what I'm going to do, I've got about 9 minutes because I'm gonna conclude this at the 3rd hour. And what we'll look forward to is Saturday to continue the reading. I would like to say that I could do this daily, but you know, my time elements don't permit that. With the obligations that I have. So I would say look forward to us continuing our reading Saturday at the same time, 9 p.m. on Saturday. And hopefully, if you do, by the time, if you are able to, get yourself a copy of this book, a copy of the book, a digital or physical book, whatever is accessible to you, because sometimes it makes all the difference to be able to read along and even take the opportunity to study yourself, in your own convenience. Because one of the things that happens out of it, like I said, there's a common accord that comes from studying in this way, because it keeps us. There's a synchronization that happens when you study together and build together. There's a synchronization process that happens from that, and that's how power starts to grow. You understand? If there wasn't any power there, well, that's how it starts to grow. That's how it starts to become. With knowledge, family, with knowledge. I do appreciate all those who are viewing this tonight, and your presence here. I encourage you to share this, so that way others can perhaps reflect and ponder and build and read along with us and whatnot, if they aren't even aware of any of this happening. Also, subscribe if you haven't, and encourage others to subscribe and show your support to the platform, Soul Journey of Life. You see the Cashapp right there, the LightDome. Your support is definitely appreciated, and it does help make this continue to be possible. After all, this is definitely a task that requires effort, energy, patience, and of course, time. So, yeah, again, as you see, Asante Sana for any efforts from any kind hearts from amongst the community. Other than that, family, I want to leave you with a song. That's what I'm trying to set you up for here. Leave you with a song from yours truly. Leave you with a song from yours truly. What song shall that be? What song shall that be? If we got any requests of songs from Brother Questman, let me know. But I'm gonna look while you guys respond to that. I'm gonna put up a song that's a collaborative effort between Brother Questman and a brother who goes by Bossman Blake. I'm gonna put up a song, and I've got a few songs we did some collaborations with, but there's one that kind of like the first collaboration effort. If I can find it, let's see here. Let me know what you'd like to hear, and I'll bring that up as well. Okay, let me set that up. Let's close that, minimize that. And we don't need that in the way. All right. Let's see. So this particular song, Brother Bossman Blake, the track is mixed by Brother Bossman Blake. Make sure you check out his channel if you can. He's always putting some content up. Like I said, I haven't been able to been online as I had been due to different particular circumstances. So I'm not sure what the latest content is, but from what I've seen, it's something you want to take a look at. So I've got Twisted Lies up because we've got a lot of untwisting to do, and that's why it's important for us to come together and break bread on the knowledge tip, right? On a scholarly tip, to untwist the lies, that have been put before us by our adversary to keep us docile, subordinate, submissive, and hindered from any efforts to unity. It's not inevitable. It's not permanent. It's not something that we can't break from. So, with that said, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that, okay? I'll leave you with 2 songs. How about that? So it's going to be True Lives. And since we're talking about collaborating with Brother Bossman, I'll have 2 songs that are in collaboration. All right, how about that? 2 songs. I'm trying to let this commercial play out. There's a commercial. I always want to have some kind of commercial. All right. So with that said, I'm going to say, as we're going into these songs here, like I said, I appreciate all those who came by to build, listen to a brother. We were reading tonight the Blueprint for Black Power by Amos Wilson. And we intend to continue reading it through until its completion, inshallah, God so willing. And I hope to see you guys back as we continue. This is your brother Abdul Wadud, aka Questman, live soul journey of life, conscious black social media. Let's go ahead and check out this joint right here, Twisted Lies, right? Twisted Lies. Twisted Lies, Brother Bossman Blake featuring Questman. And then after that, you'll see.
ID, please.
Let's take a moment for the ancestors. A lot was homeless in the bad weather, and that's the reason we should stick together. Cause with each other we do better, we can never settle. See, y'all people took a lot of beatings. Don't disregard the teachings, the heart is where I'm reaching. How is it so our people so deceitful? When we we begging to be equal. Tell me how we beat them. And everybody cannot be a leader. You gotta learn to follow first before you lead. Even anathema, they gon' have to fail. Tell me, can you really tell? Your people really care. Let know that I'ma be there. Make them see hell. Yeah. And we don't give a fuck about no enemy. You feeling me? Cause the remedy is what we really need. It ain't really hard to see. We got too many people. Just know that I never will leave you. And I'ma ride with my people to the end. That's just what it is, what it is. I'm going all about my Questman with the boss man. Soldier of life. Yo.
ID, please.
Woke up this morning and all came so crystal clear. That ancestral voice screaming loudly in my ear. Looking through these framed spectacles, a tactical perspective tells me more than meets the eye. Living amongst the pitiful, visual, blurry, the streets of the day, hurry, trying to stay out the way. Really, the drive is inevitable. This ancient black skin's got me spitting parables, and still ain't ready. Even though devil tactics no longer hide behind ghostly masks. Do you really have to add? I refuse to release my testicles. The best among us will be those who unify. Black thoughts over barbecue sauce, round table talk, art of war. I'm ready for battle. And my kinfolk still caught for the babble. Blood is thicker than water. I believe in us till this fish bites the gravel. All I wanna do is see my people unify for real. Old broken nation, the pain heal.
ID, please.
Oh yeah. You already know. Let's go. I'm looking at my babies, not wanting to repeat the drama, my life story. I want to see them win and reach the height of the glory. Praying until the earliest of the morning. I get it for the work notes, it's no joke. Survival of the fittest, crossing the high rope bridge, scratching my head, fall on my nose, I cringe. Looking back at the long way down, make amends, reaching for some light. But the way it's going, seems sometimes my life strange and storming it. Clutching tightly this rope of authenticity. Regarding reality, sometimes my mind be like, get it away from me. In this age of confrontation with my own reflection, looking in the mirror at life's harsh lesson. Even though that I try, it seems like I can't get it right. Out of my mind. Sometimes I cannot even find. Am I wasting my time? But I know it's my life. And one day I'ma get it right. But you gotta live your life. Some don't have the statistical fortitude. Their mentality, repetition, preludes of hating you whenever you break through. They're the first to shame, blame, and ridicule. It's pitiful, so hold on to your visuals. It's never as good as it gets, so it's as good as it gets. Wade through the water, quit complaining, wipe off your sweat. How many tears does it take to stand up on your own 2 feet? How many years does it take to make or break you in the belly of the beast? No one but me can breathe the same breath I must breathe. No one but me can be accountable for the results of my deeds. Just a stand-up wake-up announcement. Only death is promised. Nothing in this life is for keeps. Just stating the obvious. What is it again? Stating the obvious. Nothing in this life is for keeps. Just stating the obvious. Just stating the obvious. Stating the obvious. Even though that I try, it seems like I can't get it right. I'm going out of my mind. Sometimes I cannot even find. Am I wasting my time? But I know it's my life. And one day I'ma get it right. But you gotta live your life. I see you, boss man. Okay then.
Welcome to your wake-up call. Soul Journey of Life, Conscious Black Social Media. The LightDome.